Hello everybody, Gage here from Sharp. Excited to have you with me for the third installment of our 5 favorite food tubers. Today's episode is all about demystifying Chinese cooking with Chinese Cooking Demystified. So today we are making Mapo tofu. This is a dish that Jake, actually our wonderful cameraman, brought to my attention, and he learned how to cook this through a number of sources, but his favorite was Chinese Cooking Demystified. This is a great channel if you're into Chinese cuisine and you're looking for the most authentic recipes and procedures and methods for making Chinese cooking. So today's video, again, is Mapo tofu. What we need to get started with is cubing up and blanching our tofu, so let's get right into it. Okay guys, so first up, we're gonna cube up our tofu. We are using soft tofu today. We don't wanna use silken tofu. We don't wanna use firm tofu. If you see a recipe that calls for either of those things, run away. We're gonna cut these into quite large, big old chunky chunks here. I'm gonna try to make them as square as I possibly can, which I failed at already, but that's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect by any means. There's one done. This stuff is tons of fun to cut. It just like doesn't even feel like you're cutting anything. A lot of Chinese cuisine is all about texture, as is all cuisine, I guess you could argue, but we really want to pay attention to what size we're cutting things. We don't want to go too small, we don't want to go too big. Nice big old chunks of tofu. This is a tofu dish, so we wanna see it, we wanna taste it, we wanna feel it. Okay, cool guys, we got our tofu cut, so now we're going to blanch it. So in a pot of simmering water, we don't want boiling water, we're going to gently place our tofu in. If you ever made pasta before, when you season your water, you want it to kind of taste like the ocean. Now we're blanching our tofu to take away some of the grassy flavor of the tofu, to season it with our salted water, and to also firm up the tofu a little bit. Of course, this is soft tofu, so we need to be very, very gentle with it when we go into the water. So be careful. Okay, so our tofu's in the water. We're going to leave it in there for about 5 to 7 minutes to just simmer away. Once that's done, we're going to cut the heat and just let it hang out in there for a little while. You know your tofu's done when it's feeling a little bit more firm, it tastes nice and salty and doesn't have that extreme grassy flavor to it. So while that's going, we're going to work on our vegetable mise en place here. So we've got garlic, ginger, which is gonna get it cut up really nice and small. We're also going to cut up very small the whites of our scallions. That's gonna go with our ginger and garlic. And then the green tops we're gonna use as a garnish, so we'll cut those on a nice bias so it looks nice and cool when we put it on top. We've also got some garlic scapes here. These are gonna be great for texture and flavor, of course, but we're gonna cut them into like little 1-inch pieces here. We don't wanna go too small on these guys. So let's get into it. All right, the knife I'm using today, guys, is called the Atetsu Nashiji Bunka, 170 millimeters. It's made from Algami number 2 carbon steel and a stainless cladding. The reason I chose this knife today is because we had all that like little intricate work to do with the ginger and garlic. I love using a bunka for that type of work, so that's why I chose it. It also looks super cool and it's pretty easy to maintain, so highly recommend this knife. So when you can see here, our tofu's starting to float pretty nice here. That's a good sign. We'll just gently push it around, make sure there's no pieces at the bottom, not getting some love here. But everything's looking good. We're nice and floaty here, so I'm gonna just cut the heat off of this. That's ready to go. We'll just leave it in there until we get everything else ready to go here. Okay, we got all our veg prep done. We've got our tofu all ready to go. The last thing we need to do here is chop up our chili broad bean paste and our little fermented soybeans here. Oh, so cute. This stuff tastes like black garlic. It's delicious. They recommend that if you cannot find these guys, don't use black bean paste as a substitute. It's gonna make your dish taste a little bit too much like black beans and kind of artificial tasting. So if you can't find these, just omit them. But chances are if you have like a Nations or a Tan, which is what we have here in Canada, close to you, you'll be able to find these guys. I'm gonna grab a separate cutting board here, guys, because this broad bean chili paste is definitely gonna stain my beautiful cutting board here. So I'm gonna grab this guy here. We're not looking for anything crazy here. We're just kind of chopping this stuff up so we don't get any like gloopy gloops. So just kind of rough chop through it here. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't want to get like a big bite of the broad bean. It's intense, so it's not going to be super pleasant. And the texture as well is a little weird for me at least. So I don't like big old chunks. So I typically go a little finer on this than maybe you need to. Remember, when we're using our Japanese knives to roll through ingredients like this, we don't want to be doing any twisting or torquing our knife on the board. So you notice I'm going straight up and down. I'm using very gentle pressure while I'm doing this. Okay, same sort of thing here, guys. We don't want a full bite of this when we're eating our Mapo tofu, so we're just gonna rough chop these bad boys up. We don't need to go too crazy here, but again, we just want to kind of mush them up a little bit. All right, guys, we're back. We've got all of our mise en place ready to go. It's very important that you get all of this stuff ready to go before you start cooking, or else you're gonna have an absolute disaster on your hands. So some additional things that we have ready to go here are some ground pork. You want nice fatty, very like chunky pork. We've got some chicken stock ready to go. We've got cornstarch slurry ready to go. Our tofu is ready to go. We've got all of our tools handy that we're gonna need to scoop stuff up and move stuff around. So we're ready to go here. In addition to all the other accoutrements that we have ready to go here that we did not discuss, we've got just some regular chili powder and we've got some white pepper here as well. So make sure you've got that ready to go. I've got my wok heating up here. We're gonna go in with our Szechuan peppercorns. We're gonna toast these bad boys off and then throw them in the mortar and pestle, and then grind them all up. So we're smoking here, we're ready to go. Keep these guys moving. Okay, so when we're toasting our spices here, we wanna keep them moving so they don't burn. We want to activate the aroma. So when you start to smell it really, really nice, we don't want really any color on them. We know we're on the right track if we're seeing little oil marks on the pan, which I am seeing here. Seeing our peppercorns open up a little bit as well, that's a good sign. I'm starting to smell it really, really nice here. So we're probably just about ready to go. Okay, next we're going in with some corn oil. We want a generous amount of this here. Decide to watch the Chinese Cooking Demystified video. They're gonna call for unrefined canola oil. That is not allowed here in Canada, so we unfortunately cannot use it. So we are going to substitute some regular old corn oil for that. No big deal. It'll change the flavor a little bit, but not too much. We're gonna go in with our pork now. Very gentle with this hot oil. Turn our heat down. We wanna render this off. We don't wanna get it too cooked here. We can use beef here in place of pork if that's your preference. Jake's made it with both pork and beef, and he definitely prefers the pork. I have only tried Jake's with the pork and it was delicious, so I think that's a good way to go. If you don't want to use pork or beef in your recipe, maybe you're a vegetarian or you're trying to cut down on your meat consumption, you can use dried mushrooms instead, or peanuts, both of which will work really, really well. Mushrooms, the dried mushrooms especially, because you can kind of use like the dried mushroom stock to flavor your dish a little bit. So it's also important to note here, we're using quite a bit of pork, but that's because we're doing a double batch here, so it's gonna look like a little bit more than what they used. But it's important to remember that this is not a pork dish. So this is just for seasoning. We don't want to use too much pork, but I've got this nicely rendered down here now. I've got a nice amount of fat. It's gonna flavor our dish beautifully. So I'm ready to pull this out. All right, next we're going in with our broad bean chili paste. We don't want a super hot pan here. So another reason we don't want to go super hot here, aside from obviously burning our chili broad bean paste, making it taste bitter, is it's gonna affect the color of our oil. So if you cook this too hot, it's gonna ruin the color of your oil. So you want to go like sort of low, go nice and slow. Going fast here is not going to make anything better. If you want to check to see if you've done a good job, you're going to just use a spoon, scoop some of the oil up and see if it's nice and red in color. So let's see how we're doing here. Got some really nice deep orangey red color going on here. So this looks awesome. 1.5 or 2 minutes is all you need here. So we're pretty much done. Okay, so next we're going in with our aromatics. That's gonna be our garlic, our scallions, and our ginger. We chopped up a little too much ginger here, so we're just gonna do, that's probably enough. Going in with our chili flakes here as well. Phew. Whatever chili flake you're comfortable with, depending on your tolerance for heat. Our ground white pepper, give that a little toss-a-roo. Oh my gosh, if you guys could smell what this kitchen smells like right now, probably say it smells great. Cool, we're gonna get this going, and then we're gonna add in our pork and our garlic scapes, but before we do that, we're gonna add in our chopped black beans. Whew. You guys can probably see at this point how important it is to have everything ready to go, because if you're screwing around trying to measure stuff out or take things out of packages here, it's gonna be a disaster. Okay, this is looking awesome here, guys. Let's go back in with our pork. Garlic scapes. We're back on the high heat here, folks. We're stir frying it at this point. We're gonna go about 45 seconds here with our garlic scapes before we go in with the chicken stock. Going in with our chicken stock. Always a good idea to have this like at least room temperature, if not like a little bit hot, so that it doesn't cool things down too much. Oh, buddy. That's about 2 cups of chicken stock we've got in here. While this is coming back up to a simmer, we'll get our tofu drained so that we're ready to get it back into our pan here and get everything cooked up. We keep our tofu in these beautiful little squares that we made. Beautiful medium-sized squares. Okay, tofu ready. Our sauce is almost coming up to a simmer here. Cool, we're just coming up to a simmer here, guys, so I think we're ready to go in with our tofu. Again, we want to be gentle. Don't splash yourself. Be gentle. Oh. Oh. There we go. Now, I'd always encourage people to taste their food as they're going. It's important to season along the way. That's how you get the most, uniform flavor and good seasoning. But at this point, we still need to let this reduce a little bit. So if you taste this and it's not feeling super well seasoned, don't go adding any salt or anything to it yet. We have a lot of seasoning to do at the end. So we've got Shaoxing vinegar, we've got soy sauce, sesame oil to go in at the end. We've also got some Szechuan peppercorns that we need to get in here still as well. So don't go crazy with the seasoning yet. We'll make everything right at the end. Okay, so we want to get our pan up nice and high here. We should see nice bubbling happening. We want to reduce this a little bit, but we still want to be very gentle with our tofu. So when you're stirring this, just along the edge of the pan, you want to be very gentle going into the bottom of the pan. Just move this around a little bit. That's looking great. Cool, so we can turn this down just a touch so we don't burn the bottom and let it simmer away here. Okay, and now through the magic of television, we'll come back when this is simmered and reduced down enough, and we'll finish her off for you. All right, folks, we're back. It's been about 5 or 6 minutes of simmering here. Mostly what we're trying to accomplish here is to impart all of the flavor in our pan into the tofu. So we do want to see a little bit of reduction happening, not too much. We're gonna thicken with our cornstarch slurry here. But 5 or 6 minutes, we're good to go. We're gonna put in a little bit of cornstarch slurry. You guys know you can always add in more, you can't take away. So we're gonna go in with a little bit to start. Make sure you get it all around because you don't want to mix too vigorously here. We'll go with that to start and see how we do. Now you can adjust this depending on your preference for the texture. We don't want it like super soupy, but we don't want it like goopy either. So
We want gloss.
we want gloss. We're looking for some nice gloss here, folks. And remember to keep your heat up high because what's going to activate the cornstarch and help us thicken our dish is the heat. So keep it nice and hot, and we can already see it's starting to tighten up a little bit here, which is really nice. We're getting that glossy finish. Being very gentle as we stir. Our garlic scapes are nice and cooked now because they've been simmering away. And look at that. I think Jake was right. I think that's perfect. That looks really nice. We're not goopy, but we're not like soupy. No soup, no goop. Okay folks, we're near to the end here. Last thing we gotta do is add our Szechuan peppercorns and our seasonings. We've got some Chinese cooking wine, we've got soy, we've got sesame, we've got, what the heck is this? Black vinegar. Cool, so let's go in with our peppercorns. Phew. We're gonna do about a tablespoon of each of our soy, vinegar, and cooking wine. Be really careful with your sesame. This stuff's very overpowering. So just a tiny little bit to start. We can taste and add more if we want to. Oh man, and that really is just taking it to a whole nother level here, guys. Before you add any more of the soy, sesame, vinegar, cooking wine, sprinkle in a little MSG in there, see if that gets you where you need to be. If you don't have MSG at home, you can use salt. It's not gonna have the same effect, but can try that out. But this looks frickin' awesome. So let's have a taste and see where we're at and see if we need to adjust our seasoning. Oh man. Cool. I mean, that tastes fantastic to me. I don't think it needs anything else. I'll let Jake have a taste and let him decide. But man, I'm really stoked on that. That tastes fantastic. Jake, come here. All right, we're all done here, guys. Last thing to do is garnish with our scallions and some sesame seeds. A little freshness on top here. You can eat this with rice. You can eat it by itself. It's delicious any way you slice it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to go check out Chinese Cooking Demystified for a bunch of amazing recipes and really well thought out videos describing how exactly you make these dishes. Jake and I are gonna crush this now. Till next video, stay sharp.